What do you know, we're back on the internet again. I don't really know how I got into the habit of uploading every other day, but at least it seems pretty manageable right now. Well, let's start today with, I don't need headphones, that's a you problem. So I was riding on an Uber pool this morning when an incredibly inconsiderate individual got in the passenger seat. He pulled out his phone and started watching videos at full volume and blasting music. Do you happen to have headphones? I asked. No, why would I need headphones? He responded. Because you're in a car with other people and it's a considerate thing to do to not force everyone else to listen to your video and music? That sounds like a you problem, he replies, going back to watching his video. So I pulled out my phone and blasted Baby Shark from the back seat for the remainder of the ride. If he turned around or got upset, well, that's a you problem. Yeah, to the people who leave their phone or their tablet or whatever at full volume while out in public, I really don't like you. In fact, nobody likes you. A customer claims we ruined her son's Christmas because she thought her car would grow. So I worked retail at a large sporting goods store around the holidays. My store had a large trampoline for sale, of which a customer bought but quickly found out it was too large to fit in her sedan. No problem. We told her we would put it on hold for her and she could come back when she found a car to borrow or someone to help her out. This was in early December and it was common practice for us to put items in the back with a tag saying it was for ex-customer and that she had already paid. Fast forward to a few weeks later, Christmas Eve, around 5:30, store closes at 6, the same customer calls and asks if she can come get her trampoline, but she'll be late. Fine, we will be there anyways, closing down. I go to the backstock area only to find someone has sold her trampoline. No big deal, another store is 15 minutes away with one in stock. I hop in my personal truck, drive to the other store, pick up the trampoline and head back to the store. Arrive at roughly the same time as the customer. We tell her we can just move it straight from the bed of my truck into her car. Sounds good. Wrong. We go outside to find she is in the same car she came to the store in weeks ago, and she has her son in the car, presumably the one who's receiving the trampoline for Christmas. Again, we tell her that this trampoline will not fit in her car. At this point, she is irate that the trampoline is not wrapped for her, not a service we have ever offered or advertised, that it won't fit, and that we have now ruined Christmas for her son because he knows he's getting a trampoline now, and he won't have it tomorrow morning. At this time, my store director graciously offers to put the trampoline in his car and drive it to the woman's house, that is fairly close by. We don't offer delivery, by the way. She agrees. So the director drives to her house with his trampoline on the Christmas Eve, instead of being with his family. He arrives, to which this woman goes inside and shuts her door without offering any instruction or help to my director. He proceeds to stand at the front door and knock for an extended period of time before she opens the door as if she is bothered that he is there. He tells her that he's just going to put the trampoline outside the garage, which infuriates her because it's not under the tree. He obliges and by himself gets the trampoline up her front porch stairs and to the door, which he discovers is closed and locked, again. He again waits on her to open the door, to which she never does. At this point, he decides that enough has been done to appease this customer and goes on his way to enjoy Christmas Eve with his family. Now, fast forward to the day after Christmas. The next day the store was open, and who comes marching in? This lady, and she's furious. The director takes her to his office, and she proceeds to scream and throw a fit, demanding a refund because we ruined Christmas for the kids because we were so unaccommodating to her. Apparently she was mad that we didn't put it under the tree for her. My store director quickly shut this down, explains what happened, why he left it where he did, and everything we did to make sure she got this trampoline. She's not having any of this, and at this time, she is asked to leave the store because of her screaming. She refuses, PD is quickly called, and she is escorted out of the building, and as far as I know of, never seen again at the store. What a pleasant lady. Don't you love it when somebody requests the impossible from you, and then gets mad that even though you went above and beyond what you should have, it still wasn't good enough? Called out in the meeting. I work in security, and have been for years. A common practice is to complete a report of what happened during your time. I specifically work in patrols. Basically, you go from location to location, checking on each site. After each site, you write what you did at the location. I have 40 sites to watch over every night. For this reason, things tend to get very copy-paste. Most locations require the same thing. Check exterior, checking stairs, doors, damage, you get the point. I get a new manager who is disconnected with how patrols work. He wants us to make unique entries into every single log. When I mean unique, I mean none can be close to similar. So if I state I patrolled the exterior of the building, I can't use that phrase for any of the other logs. You see how that could cause me a lot of problems, and is a massive time waster. After about a week of being borderline harassed, and threatened to make each log 100% unique or else, I decided to go on the malicious mode. We have so much to look after. We have thick binders giving detailed information for each site, and what's required for you. Site orders. Every time I would complete a site, I would just copy and paste all the information into the log. Each log has a small window that you could put 50 words into before it becomes overwhelming to read. Each log I posted had no less than 500 words directly from the site orders. After my first day doing this, I expected to walk in and get yelled at. However, nothing happened. I got no emails, no talking to, zero interaction. However, I still hear that other security officers are still getting chewed out. I decided to see how long I could get away with this. 2 months later, and still no one says anything, not a word. We have quarterly meetings to talk about accidents, and how the patrol is doing, what's going wrong and what's good. Cue the manager, the first thing he brings up is the logs, and how almost everyone is failing, how we all should know better. You're not kids, I shouldn't be holding your hands. The only adult in here besides me is OP. I look up at him, and his smile was almost disturbing. He then shows a log I wrote up. He begins to talk about how everyone should be like me, how no one deserves to work here but me. The looks I was getting from everyone was brutal. He talked for about 20 minutes constantly using my name. He would have kept going, but I interrupted him. I asked why he called me out, and how inappropriate it was for him to do so. He looked at me and said, "Only children interrupt someone when they are talking." I told him that he has a strange obsession with children, and he needed to get help. The room was dead silent for a solid 30 seconds as we made direct eye contact. I then turned to the group, telling them that I have been copy and pasting my report for the last 2 months. I told them that I had just copy and pasted the site orders over and over again. The manager's face started getting real red. He, after all, wanted us to make unique logs. He started to scramble a bit as he pulled up the logs of mine, only to show that everything I said was true. After that, the whole group jumped on him. Many had been screamed at for the exact thing I had been doing. It was brutal. I don't think I had ever seen so many people yell at one person at the same time. The manager slid into his chair, just looking at the computer. It was 15 minutes of just utter verbal shouting. He quit a few weeks later. Yeah, don't you love it when you get a security job and it turns into a creative writing job? This story actually just reminded me of when I used to get in trouble at my security job too. I mean, I didn't patrol or anything, I would just watch cameras and I was just a dispatcher. But all the cameras had sensors, so it would pop up an event if it sensed movement. And so I had to go in and just close it out, whether it was an animal walking around or just the wind blowing or there was employees there. But even though you had the category thing, people would always insist that I had to type in exactly what was going on. And so I'm just really? You need me to type wind was blowing trees every single time? It's always great when you remember why you're glad you don't work somewhere. Stealing my notes? Guess who won't graduate high school? So this happened in 2018 when I graduated high school. A quick overview of the Swiss school system. Normally you go to school until 9th grade. If you want to go to university later, you change to grammar school or high school from 8th to 12th grade. I decided to study and went to high school. Also, in Switzerland, my state at least, everything under 75% is fail. We have a really strict thing going on there. There I quickly became friends with Chelsea, my now girlfriend, and Alicia. Alicia is the kind of person that is funny if you don't have her around too much. She is always the victim, she can only talk about herself, etc. But if you spend too much time with her, you're a mess. She's also never responsible for things happening to her because she grew up in the foster care system. Whatever. So this happened about 2 months ago before our finals. Now, graduating means passing the finals, obviously, but not only them. The finals are half of your eventual grade. The other half is your last report card. If I had an A on my final English exam but a C in my last report card, my eventual grade would be a B, and so on. Alicia really struggled with that because her last report card wasn't that good. She had to excel in most of the subjects to graduate. So you would think that she'd write as many notes as possible and study pretty early, right? Nope, she procrastinated until 2 months before our finals, while I and Chelsea studied our butts off. Now, I always was the girl who offered her notes in our class group chat, in case someone was interested. This gets important later. We had a fairly long list of things we had to be able to use in maths, and I wrote notes for every single topic and kept it in a folder in my locker. Only put some of them on the group chat, just when someone was asking about a certain topic. One day, I went to my locker and they weren't there. I was freaking out. I spent weeks on writing them. I looked around for them the entire week and had approximately 3 panic attacks because I thought I wouldn't pass now and had to do all of it again. That's when Alicia casually told me that she had took them the other day when I asked her to get the book from my locker. She actually hadn't planned to tell me at all because it's not like you'd need them anyway. You had them long enough. If you didn't make copies, it's not my fault. The blatant entitlement was enough for me to come up with a plan. A vicious plan. Not only had she stolen my notes, if I hadn't bothered her so much with it, then she wouldn't have even told me she had taken them. She was only a high school friend anyway, and I knew I'd never do anything with her again once we graduated, so frankly, I didn't give a single crap about what would happen to her. Her entitled, self-centered way was enough for me to finally burst. I apologized for making drama. It's okay, you're just like that sometimes. I was about to lose it, and just continued my school day. Now, Alicia kept calling me about the notes, etc., even before that, especially my notes for various books. She'd chosen the same books, so she didn't have to study extra. I started to give her a wrong analysis, and started to fake notes. Obvious enough to figure out they were wrong, if she'd think herself, but not too obvious. If she'd read the books, she'd know it was BS. I did the same with our English books, and French. She already had my math notes too, I couldn't fake those. But I could fake German, French, English, chemistry, physics, and psychology. Now, after I invested so much time in faking notes, I watched it all go down the day before graduation. We went into a pub with our teacher, and she distributed our results. I passed with a 5.38, which in Switzerland the grades go from 1 to 6. 6 is the best, so about an A. And Alicia went pale, a 3.21, a D-. She had failed all of her classes but maths and psychology. Oops, it seemed like she really just read my notes. She didn't read the books she was supposed to read. She didn't read our textbooks. I had to hide a grin. My girlfriend thinks to this day it was cruel, but seriously? It was a damper for her entitlement and narcissism. From what I've heard, she's currently trying to repeat her year and try again, hopefully without stealing her friends' notes. Man, you should have asked for extra credit for going the extra mile of not only getting the good grade, but also producing a whole set of notes of completely incorrect information. You're basically siphoning off the other person's grade. Well, now we get to move on to the question of the day, which is, when were you blown away by your own stupidity? In school one day, my friend had a pen that lit up when you pressed it to paper. Or if you flicked a switch on the pen, the lights would flash. He kept turning it on and waving it at me. This annoyed me, so I took the batteries out in front of him. He stared at me for a second before trying to get the batteries back. In the midst of the struggle, I decided the best way to stop him from getting them, so I popped them in my mouth, then proceeded to swallow them. My friend returned to staring at me, but with a panicked look on his face. I didn't think anything of it at first, but eventually I realized that I shouldn't have done that. I started feeling weird. I held my hand up to ask my teacher if I could go to the nurse's office. Skeptical, she asked me why. I told her I had just eaten 3 small batteries and was feeling weird. She stared in disbelief, I think, for a second, then told the class that she'll return in a moment, and immediately seized my hand and practically dragged me along, sprinting to the nurse's office. She threw me into the nurse's office and screamed, "He's freaking swallowed batteries!" The nurse jumped out of her chair. "Oh my gosh, oh crap, I'll ring the NHS and find out what we need to do." I immediately felt like the stupidest idiot alive. I asked if I was going to be okay. My teacher looked at me and smiled, the fakest smile I've ever seen in my life. Of course you are, boy." Long story short, I had to be taken to the A&E and had to be x-rayed to see where the batteries were. They had reached my stomach, so I was at risk of the stomach acid melting the metal coating and the battery acid entering my stomach. I was given laxatives and a sieve, and kept overnight, of which I spent 75% of this sifting through my stodgy bowel movements. Like some crazed Wild West miner scouring for gold. Eventually found them, and I've lived happily ever after since, thankfully. I wish I still had them, a trophy of the stupidest I've ever been. Alrighty, don't eat batteries, guys. I recently went to pick up an order of glasses. The optician asked me to try them on, to see if they fit well. I told him this must be someone else's order, because everything was blurry. He was surprised and started hunting through boxes, and I kept squinting and looking around at blurry shapes. We did this for 10 minutes before the optometrist walked in. He explained the issue, and then the optometrist paused and asked where I put the glasses I was wearing when I walked in. I said I was wearing contacts. I was wearing contacts, and I put the new glasses over my contacts. I asked the optometrist if this gave me double the perfect vision, and she replied, "If you mean double vision, sure." I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people watching this that can relate to this story a lot more than me because I've never worn contacts or glasses. I once was cooking mac and cheese and started squeezing the cheese sauce in before draining the water. When I realized the mistake, I grabbed the cheese sauce with my hands, and that just made everything worse in every way. This sounds very similar to all those stories of stupid things you've done when you're on autopilot. During the holidays, I walked through an arts and crafts store trying to find something very specific. After finding out they didn't have it, I got in a long line to check out. It didn't hit me that I didn't have anything to buy until it was my turn. I just walked past the cashier, waved, and said, "Have a nice day." It was night. Well, you were obviously completely spaced out the whole time, so I can't imagine standing in the long line was that too big of a chore. Birthday is March 12th. In high school, I saw that my birthday was going to fall on a Thursday, so I was like, oh wow, Thursday the 12th. I proceeded to scan the next couple of decades on my iPod Touch calendar to find out if my birthday would ever fall on Friday the 13th. To those curious, no, my March 12th birthday doesn't ever fall on Friday the 13th. Not my proudest moments, not my worst. Man, people use this kind of thing to troll on the internet all the time. Like, did you know that Halloween is taking place on Friday the 13th this year? In high school, I woke up on a day where very icy weather was expected, and couldn't find school closings on TV. I begrudgingly got ready for school, stepped out my front door, and immediately slipped on ice, landing flat on my back. Got up, shook it off, and cursed the school for not being closed. I had to crawl my way up a hill to the bus stop because I kept slipping down ice on the way there. I got to the bus stop and waited for over half an hour for it to get there. Checked my watch repeatedly, getting more and more angry each time. Finally decided they must have canceled school and slowly made it back home, where I see a clock. It was now 2:30 a.m. Checked my watch repeatedly. I honestly was expecting it to just be Saturday or something, but this is the problem when you live somewhere fairly far north during the winter. It's dark so often that 2 a.m. looks just the same as like 7 a.m. in some places. The first time my husband took me to a fancy restaurant. I grew up on the US/Mexico border, so I'm used to the word con being with in food. Chili con carne, arroz con pollo, you get the drift. Husband takes me to a fancy restaurant when we're still dating, and I'm really poor, so prior to this, for me, fancy was Olive Garden. I pick something out for dinner, and he says, "Do you want an appetizer?" I said, "I don't care, you pick one, I've got to run to the restroom." I come back and sit down, and he says, "I ordered the duck confit pastry appetizer." All I can picture is the end of A Christmas Story with the goose with its head still on being served at dinner. I'm kind of horrified, but don't say anything. But I'm expecting us to be handed a duck with the feet still attached. So the appetizer comes, and it's these little pastry cups with cubes of, I presume, chopped up duck inside. And I look at him and say, "So are the feet in there too?" "Yeah, it's duck confit, not duck confit. And I'm never living that down." Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the stories again today. I've actually experienced 2 instances of feeling really stupid in the last week. So not too long ago, my phone broke because I dropped it off a roller coaster. So I went on to eBay. I was just going to buy another S7 because, that's what I usually do. So like on eBay, it's kind of tricky because there's like tons of different listings. They all look very similar, but they're all different descriptions and such. So I buy one that looks cheap. And then I don't realize it until I get it that it's got a screen burn on it. So I'm like, I don't want this one. So I start the return for that one. I order another one. And then the other one shows up and I ordered one for the wrong carrier. So now I have 2 phones that I can't use. So I just ordered a third one. Hopefully I got it figured out. I read the description and the title very carefully this time. And I'm not going to mess it up again. So I should have a new phone again soon. But anyways, that's my brain fart story. Leave yours in the comments if you want to, and thanks for watching.